Welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. Here's your host, Scott Cowan.
Hello and welcome to episode 13. Today I have a conversation with Brandon Fralic and Rachel Wood. Brandon and Rachel are authors of the newly published book, Urban Hikes Washington. This is a guidebook of 40 urban hikes all across Washington State, with full details including maps, GPS coordinates, trailhead locations, etc. So you're always going to know where you're heading when you go on one of these hikes. These are easy and family-friendly hikes located within the urban core or within 15 minutes of town. So from Discovery Park in Seattle to Spokane's Riverfront Park, you're going to be inspired to get out and go for a walk using this guidebook. I personally have gone on both of the hikes here in Wenatchee that they list in the book. They're a lot of fun. And for those of you that know me, hiking isn't exactly my thing. Rachel and Brandon are also going to share some stories about the selection process for hikes in the book. We're going to chat about some great places to grab a bite to eat or to get a pint of some of Washington State's great craft beers. I really enjoyed my conversation with Brandon and Rachel, and I'm sure you will too. So let's get started and welcome to the episode. So welcome to the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Yeah, so I'm Brandon, and I'm with my partner Rachel here, and together we are Beers at the Bottom, which is a name that we came up with several years ago when we started our blog. And the concept was we love to go hiking. We love to drink beer afterwards. So we would go for a hike and find the nearest brewery to go and have a pint, Beers at the Bottom, after our big hike. And we started blogging about that back in 2013.
Yeah, that was 2013. So, and I'm Rachel, the other half of Beers at the Bottom. I like to joke that I'm the mostly beer half of Beers at the Bottom since I actually work in the beer industry. So
what do you do in the beer industry?
I'm a beer tender at a little neighborhood brewery down in Kenmore, Washington, Cairn Brewing. So I am their resident author, as my boss likes to joke. And then I do some of their social media vlogging stuff and then work behind the counter pouring pints.
Pouring pints. Awesome. Okay. So the audience can't see this. You guys can only see part of it. This is my only outdoor shirt, which, I pee outside. It's kind of a bad joke, but I'm not a hiker. So I'm going to let you guys take the lead here. This is not my wheelhouse.
Then
you just came out with a new book called Urban Hikes Washington. I thumbed through it mainly because the cover was in hometown, Wenatchee. So kudos to Wenatchee being on the cover. Why don't you tell us what was the inspiration and what can readers hope to find?
Well, Scott, I'm going to say, honestly, this is the hiking guide for you. You've probably been on a few of the walks in this guide. It's definitely a really great entry point for anybody who says that, oh, I'm not a hiker. I don't hike. Because in a lot of ways, a lot of these trails are just lovely little picturesque walks through the urban centers of Washington State. So that's kind of a short entry point for you. But honestly, like urban hikes, we kind of defined as hikes in and around urban centers. So something that's going to be like a nice little city walk through a beautiful park. So think Discovery Park in Seattle or the Arboretum, Washington Arboretum. In Wenatchee, the Apple Capitol Loop is the one that's on the cover there. And that actually goes through at least three to four city parks along the river there. So it's just a nice little picturesque walk. And then the other definition that we kind of used is they're within 30 minutes of a city center. So there are a few other kind of more, we'll say, wilder areas that we go to. So actually, if you flip the book over, we have the other hike that we feature in Wenatchee on the back there, which is Saddle Rock. And that actually gets you really out into just this really craggy area up above. So, but it's still 30 minutes outside of Wenatchee. So
that's Saddle Rock.
Oh yeah.
Saddle Rock's like 10 minutes outside.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you're at the top of it, it's an amazing view of the Wenatchee Valley, the Columbia and all of that.
Yeah.
Our house is not too far from that.
Yeah.
And so it's closer to me than the cover.
Yeah.
And that's one of the
it's also
more difficult trails.
Thank you for saying that, because I've clambered up that and the ambulance was crawling behind me because they were thinking I was going to have a heart attack. It's beautiful up there, though.
But
it's just absolutely.
I would say if you can get up Saddle Rock, you can do anything else in this book.
Yeah, it's very accessible. A lot of the trails are ADA accessible. We like to joke that it's great for little legs as well. So a lot of kid-friendly hikes. Almost everything in there is dog-friendly, outside of a few nature reserves that are just not canine-friendly, to keep it more natural for the creatures who actually live there. So.
How long did it take you guys to assemble? You before we started recording, I asked you if you'd been on all these hikes. You said yes. So you've been on all these hikes. They're all across the state. So you just didn't go out and do this in a weekend. No. How long did it take you guys to put everything together, to put the book together?
Yeah. So we started the process in February of last year, 2019.
Okay.
And we had about 8 months to do all of our research and writing and complete our manuscript and send that to our publisher.
We turned that in Halloween of last year.
Yeah.
So October,
right at the end of October.
October 31st was our deadline, we'll say. Yeah.
So 8, maybe 8.5 months. And then, the publisher takes that and they go through, they do their edits, they lay out the book. And then that takes several months. They send it back to us. We do an editing process. And then, of course, it goes to print, and that takes a little longer. So it just came out in July, so last month.
Yeah, mid-July.
And so the whole process is about a year and a half or so.
Yeah.
Well, like I said earlier, it's a great looking. The production of it is great.
Yes.
This is a very, I was surprised when I got it. I was like opening it up going, wow, this is really cool. I will say that the box that it came in took me about a half hour to open up because it was like glued everywhere. It was comical. Not that you had anything to do with that, but it was like sealed, like it was, biohazard or something on the inside. It was, it was not, anyway, but the book's awesome. How about this? Because readers can go and they can get the book, they can read the hikes and all that, but is there any stories? And I didn't ask you this beforehand, so I'm throwing you on the spot. What went wrong on some of these hikes? Did everything go smoothly, or is there a story somewhere in one of those hikes that you could share that might be entertaining?
I'll say that there were some hikes that did not make the cut.
Yes, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a good example. When we were early on in our research, we were still grappling with what is an urban hike and how are we defining this? Because our publisher really left it up to us to make those decisions. And so we started out on the very urban end of the spectrum. We're going to do hikes in the city and only in the city. So we wanted to include, the Burt Gilman Trail through Seattle. Yeah. And so we started out at, where were we? Golden Gardens.
Golden Gardens. We wanted to do Golden Gardens to the Locks, which is kind of the Ballard Lodge, which is kind of the first chunk or leg of that Burt Gilman Trail. And that was a lot of pavement walking. And it turns out it's a long stretch of paved trail between two really wonderful destinations. But the hike itself, the actual walk, is more suited to, we'll say, a faster travel than walking. So biking would make that traverse a little bit more exciting. So it didn't quite make the cut for that reason.
Yeah, so we learned early on that in order for a hike to really make it into the book, it had to be something that we would want to come back and hike again.
Yeah.
And so it needed to have that kind of scenic appeal. And there were parts of that trail that just really weren't doing it for us.
No.
So we cut it. And, it was a day on the trail where we learned what we did and didn't want.
Yeah. And then the only other one that I can think of that didn't make the cut and probably would at some point, but I don't remember the name of that preserve, but we had picked out a trail that we really wanted to do. We were really excited, and we get down there, and that section of trail was completely closed for restoration. So it was a little bit disappointing. We were also down there during a heat wave. This was kind of outside of Vancouver, Washington, and it was like 92, 93. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't safe conditions to just be out hiking around and trying to figure out the way that you're trying to make through this nature preserve. So that one, that one ended up on the cutting room floor, unfortunately.
Cutting room floor. Okay. So the outtakes, but how about on the hikes that made it to the book? Anything there that was like, well, we should have prepared differently. Like, I didn't know it was going to be 90 and I didn't bring sunscreen, or I didn't know it was going to be raining the entire walk. Or what other tips do you have for people that may be going out? So let's say I'm in Wenatchee, so I'm going to go down to, I don't know, Tri-Cities and do Badger Mountain.
Right.
Okay.
Don't do it in the middle of summer. Yes.
Yeah, that's probably a really good. Yeah. But somebody from Seattle may run over to Eastern Washington and not realize that,
right.
It's a dry heat and it still crisp your skin pretty quick. If you're running around without sunscreen and a tank top on, you're going to look silly in 3 hours. But how was Badger Mountain? I always get Badger Mountain confused because there's a Badger Mountain here in Wenatchee area. And then there's Badger Mountain Brewing here, but then there's Badger Mountain down there. And I was talking to a guest on the podcast that'll come out before this episode. And she's based out of Tri-Cities. And she was saying how that area, the Badger Mountain, has gotten so crazy busy. Yes. She likes to go up at night because it's less crowded, but it's also really beautiful looking down into the Tri-Cities area. When you guys went to Badger Mountain, what did you experience there?
Yeah, so we were there in the springtime, which I would recommend is a great time to go because you've got the wildflowers, the balsam root in bloom, and the weather's nice. It's not too hot. Like midsummer is going to be blazing, so we don't usually make it out to Eastern Washington this time of year.
Yeah. Shoulder season is also really nice too because you don't experience as much trail crowding during that time. We're also very fortunate too because we did all of the research for this guide midweek. Our trail days were Monday through Wednesday a lot of times. So we were very fortunate to kind of get out when it's less busy and
that always makes a big difference.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
If you can go during off-peak times, try to avoid the weekends. If you have to go on a weekend because of work schedule or whatever, go early, go late. Just avoid that kind of middle of the day crowded time. But when we're doing research for these, we're usually out there midweek, and that helps a bit with the crowds.
Yeah.
Okay. So the book is your second book that I'm aware of.
Yes.
Correct? That your second published book. Just a curiosity question, do you have a third book planned?
No, not right now.
I can see them and one's got this face of, well, maybe, and the other one's absolutely no.
Not at this time.
Not at this time.
I always joke that, it's a brand new baby. We want to spend some time with it. We want to see it grow up a little bit. But also, as much as we love writing and researching, it does turn something that we consider a hobby into a job for about 9 months straight. And it's only within the last couple months that we've been able to get back out on the trail and really feel relaxed out there again.
And enjoy it.
Yeah. So
enjoy the moment.
Yeah. I'd like to maybe give it a little bit of time before we really jump back into another book. It is a lot of work, and it does put a strain on a lot of different aspects of our life to
We've been in kind of a year on, year off cycle with So I don't know if that will continue, but our first book came out in 2018. And then we spent that year just we're not going to do any more book projects. We're only going to work on promoting this book this year. And then 2019, we wrote another book. And now this year we're in that we're going to slow down. We're going to promote it.
Yeah.
And maybe next year we'll think about something else. But for now, we're happy to be where we are with those two.
Yeah, I was just kind of teasing you because I was wondering, what's going to be next? Really rural hikes with no beers, or
yeah,
we're moving in that direction.
Gosh, right?
Just kidding.
You wouldn't believe how many suggestions we get on book titles. People want to see, beers and bikes, or
oh my gosh,
wine and hiking, and we're like, we would write that book, but we're not experts on those subjects. That's for somebody else to write.
Yeah, I think my favorite was somebody said, we always love to find a new place to get a hamburger after we go for a hike. You guys should do that. And I was like, well, Brandon's a vegetarian. So.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
Not my book to write.
Yeah.
Not your book. Yeah. So I love, though, that you have that focus, that you're not going to go outside of your wheelhouse, that these are the things that you like. And so you can write about them authentically. I think that's great.
Go ahead.
I think also just especially with a hiking guide, you want to have somebody who has some authority on that subject. You don't want somebody who is like, oh yeah, I flew out to California for a month to write and research this book on trails that I have no idea about. You want some of that authenticity is the best way of putting it. We're both lifelong Washingtonians, and while neither one of us has spent all that much time in Eastern Washington, we do know the local flora, and we know about the geology and the history of the state, and kind of how all things coalesce and come together. So it comes off as authentic, and you want to trust somebody who knows what they're talking about when they're out on that trail. So
no, I think that's great, and I am 100% in agreement with you. Like, if I tried to write a book on hiking, it would not ring true. It just wouldn't. Coffee, on the other hand, would ring true.
Yes.
So in this book, put you on the spot. You each get to have an answer here.
Okay.
You bucket list. You can only go back on one of these hikes. You get to pick one.
Oof.
Which one, if you can only go on one, which one are you going to go back to, and why?
That's a tough one. We've got 40 hikes in there, so narrow it down.
Which is your favorite child?
The favorite child. Oh gosh. Man, that one's hard.
We even prepared with a short list of a few favorites, but narrowing it down to one.
All right, I'll cut you some slack. What's your short list, and why?
Right.
And why?
Do you want to start?
Yeah. So one that I would just continue to really want to go back to, like every few years at least, would be the Spokane Riverfront Trail that we put in there. So just right in downtown Spokane, kind of in the heart there. It's through the old area where Expo 74 took place. So it's literally like a walk through history at the same time, kind of a little bit of a portrait of Spokane at that moment. So they've just redone the old IMAX pavilion, and it's a really beautiful kind of, they want to do shows there, and they have like a light show on Friday and Saturday nights. It's just it's an ever-changing little space of green space in a large city. And you walk over the Spokane Falls. So it feels very, it literally just does feel like you're walking through different points in history in one park. So I really love that one.
Yeah. So let's stick with Eastern Washington for a second here. And I'm going to take it back to Wenatchee again, because Saddle Rock was actually one of our favorite discoveries in the guide that we hadn't done before. And we hit it at the perfect time. It was springtime. The wildflowers were out. I loved how accessible it was. Like you said, it's right in the city, like 10 minutes out of downtown. You can be at Pybus and grab lunch or breakfast and be at the trailhead in no time.
Yeah.
And so
15 minutes because you took a road trip.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then you get up there and you feel like you're so much further out of the city. All of a sudden you're on this wild trail, and then you're up at the rock, you're looking down on the river and down on Wenatchee Valley, and it's incredible. So that one, we've actually gone back to it since
a couple times. Yeah.
So that might be the one for me.
Yeah.
Okay. And then because I'm a bit biased and I live in Bellingham, I love the South Bay Trail here, which is a trail that runs from Fairhaven along the waterfront into downtown Bellingham.
Yeah.
And very easy urban trail. You see people out there pushing strollers. It's mostly flat. There is a section that's kind of a ramp. A ramp down onto the Taylor Dock boardwalk there. And it's just gorgeous. I mean, you're out there on the saltwater on the bay. You can stop for coffee at the Woods Coffee Shop there in Boulevard Park. And on either end of the trail, you're in an urban area. So, you know, if you want to grab coffee, if you want to hit up a brewery and get some beers, whatever, you start in the city, you end in the city, but in between is just this stretch of beautiful saltwater shoreline.
Cool. Bellingham's a beautiful little, I'll say a little city, but it's Bellingham's beautiful. Yeah. I like Bellingham a lot. Okay. So what's next? What's next? What other one?
Ooh.
You had it.
And then I'll continue kind of with the theme that I was talking about, but we actually were really excited to kind of explore Tacoma a little bit more. So we did a hike there, Dune Peninsula hike across the Wilson Way Bridge to Point Defiance. So it's a really interesting kind of new urban walkway, we'll say, that connects that Ruston Point area to Point Defiance. So it's making that Tacoma a little bit more accessible to those who are carless or carless travel kind of thing. So you can really do a day, like you can go down and hit up some of the newer restaurants down at Ruston Point, and then walk all the way into the flower gardens over at Point Defiance and hit up the zoo if you so choose. But it's really lovely. And they have off of Wilson Way, they have a new, what are they calling it? The stairs and slides. And kids love this. It's literally just a network of different staircases. And then next to it, it's a bunch of like slides. So like chutes and ladders in real life. So we walked and watched all these little kids and like adults sliding down the slides and then running back up the stairs and then sliding down the slides. What is there? You've got the picture there. There's at least 5 or 6 sets of slides and stairs.
It drops about 50 feet.
Yeah. So it's really
that sounds
fun.
Really cool.
Yeah. So it's fun little discoveries like that make urban parks, just kind of a gem,
I'll say if you have the book, that's page 102 for Dune Peninsula to Point Defiance Park. And it's a really cool spot to check out that just kind of opened up in the last year or so.
Yeah, kind of part of that revitalization of the Tacoma waterfront there. They really did a lot of restoration down in that area to make that Dune Peninsula Park, which is just really fantastic. So,
yeah, that's very cool looking.
Yeah.
I want to go slide down the hills, and then, like you said, it does connect to the Ruston Point and all of that development there. The restaurants that are available to you, and getting into Point Defiance, which is an amazing park with lots of things, a lot of options there. I think I've always enjoyed the ferry ride from Point Defiance to Vashon and back, just because it's a smaller ferry It's not one of the giant. I mean, I love taking the ferry into Seattle and watching the Seattle skyline, poof. That's awesome. But the Vashon ferry, I say that because I had to take it for work every day for a while, and it was never tiring.
No.
That was always kind of fun to get on the boat. It was always interesting. Get off the boat. Spoiler alert for those of you that are going to go try this hike or go down to Point Defiance. The Ruston Police Department love to catch speeders, so caution: do not speed through Ruston. There's my civic duty for the day.
Good to know.
Public service announcement. So the books have been out. Where can people find the book? I mean, is it I'll let you tell, because I'm going to ask questions, and if it's not there, I'll sound silly. But so where can people find the book right now?
Yeah, so it is available on Amazon, of course. But if you want to buy more local, and we encourage people to do that, it is in most local bookstores. So here in Bellingham, we have it at Village Books, and I'm sure if you have an indie bookstore near you, they either have it or they can get it. Barnes and Noble carries it. Some of the bigger box stores like Target carry it. And it's pretty widely available. It's easy to find.
That's awesome. That's great that it's widely available for people. Is it available at REI by chance?
I would believe so. It is part of the Falcon Guides line. So, and Falcon Guides is one of the top kind of guidebook producers in the United States. So kind of anywhere that's going to have a Falcon Guide will most likely have access to this book.
We can't confirm REI because we haven't been in there, but there's a pretty good chance that they'll have it.
I don't know. Is REI currently, time of COVID, is REI even open to the public right now? I don't know.
I believe they are, but
so it's so weird right now.
It's very
It's very strange. So let's transition. Let's go to your first book. Let's talk beer.
All right. We can talk beer.
Yeah, we can talk beer. So I have not looked at your first book in depth, so I'm going to just full disclosure here. Okay. And if you say Budweiser, this conversation's over.
Well, that means never be spoken.
That word shall not be repeated.
Yeah, no.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
On those hikes, those were designed that there were pubs, breweries, taverns, places to grab a good beer close by, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What hikes? It's been a while since you wrote the book.
Yes.
So now today you can go out anywhere you want in that book, magically appear, go hiking, go have a beer.
Oh man. So we were actually just having a conversation this morning about where we wish we could just sort of transport, just step through a portal to somewhere. And actually Yachats came up for us. So Yachats Brewing is down on the Oregon coast. It's just right outside of, it's in the town of Yachats. And what is that little area down there called?
It's kind of the southern Oregon coast.
Yeah. Cape Perpetua was the hike that we did down there. So that's pretty well known. That area is mostly known for Thor's Well. If you've seen that, one's definitely one that gets to be kind of an Instagrammable spot because it's a collapsed sea cave. So at different times of the day, it literally looks like the water is going down into a well into the bottom of the earth. So
that's very cool.
It's very beautiful. And it's just this really kind of wild section of Oregon coastline. It's all basalt rock, so it's just really craggy and everything. And then the waves come in these different formations. So it just feels very wild. And it works very perfectly with the brewery down there, which is Yachats Brewing. And they focus on wild ales, farmhouse, spontaneously fermented. I think they have a cool ship upstairs that they collect actual wild yeast from the air. So you get a lot of that, to be really pedantic right now, but the terroir of the region and everything definitely comes in. So that one was just a lovely lovely little find because it's very unique. You're only going to get beer that tastes like that from that area because of the way it's made. So,
All right. So now I should have qualified. You have to stay in Washington.
Okay.
We gave props to another state, which is not what we're all about here. I'm just kidding. Washington. You're going to stay in Washington.
Oh man.
Where's the place has great beer that people may not know and they should know?
Okay.
Oh, man.
Well, I'll go ahead and
You take that one.
Take that one because again, I love Whatcom County, and we've got a great brewery out Mount Baker Highway that people who hike out there know about it. But if you're from the Seattle area or Eastern Washington or something, and you haven't spent a lot of time up here, maybe you haven't heard of the North Fork Brewery. And they've been there a long time, but they're just doing their thing out there off Mount Baker Highway. There's really nothing else around, just this little brewery right off the road. And they are the go-to place after a hike on Mount Baker Highway.
Definitely.
They have fantastic pizza and really fun, funky beers. I mean, sours, really experimental stuff. One of my favorite things to have there is they make an ESB and they serve it on nitro, and it's the smoothest beer you'll ever taste.
Super creamy, just really creamy. Yeah.
So that's always one of our go-to stops when we're hiking up that direction.
So how far is that out of Bellingham?
It's probably about 45 minutes east on Mount Baker Highway.
Yeah. Are they Glacier or Deming? Their
technically
address?
it's Deming.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're Deming. Okay. So where else? You got to go and you were hiking and drinking. So there has to be other good stories here. What other beers? Let's say, how about this? Where in Eastern Washington? Was there any places
warmer? Closer to Wenatchee.
Well, not necessarily Wenatchee, but what have you found over here in Eastern Washington that you've enjoyed?
So let's back up a little bit, and we researched this book in 2016, and the beer landscape has changed a lot in the last few years. I mean, breweries have opened, breweries have closed, and so we've seen. The first thing that comes to mind is Yakima in Eastern Washington, because it is hop country. That's where the hops are grown for 75% of the U.S. I mean, it's incredible. So it doesn't get any fresher than that. If you have beer made in Yakima, it's hard to beat. So we included Bale Breaker.
Oh yes,
and they're actually located on a hop farm. So that's pretty cool. And of course, they're widely distributed. You can find their beer out here in Bellingham, just about anywhere in the state. And so they're really great. We love their beer. But there've been a few new breweries that have opened in Yakima over the last few years that we really haven't had a chance to check out. So we need to get back over there and do some research.
Yeah, to kind of quantify how different the beer landscape is. Since 2016, I think Washington State had 200 breweries at that point. And we were like really excited. 200 breweries, we're getting up there. We're so big. I think Washington just kind of closed in at over 400 this year.
Oh, wow.
So there's twice the number of breweries that we could have included in this book now, just in Washington alone.
So maybe you need to do volume 2.
Yes. Yeah.
And then
there's your next book for you. Let's just do volume 2.
Hopefully more on that later. Yeah.
So now that I'm thinking more about Eastern Washington, we also really love Leavenworth, and Icicle Brewing is fantastic.
And honestly, if you want to feel like you're going into a small brewery where somebody's going to remember you, it would be Icicle Brewing. Their hospitality is just fantastic. Everybody there is really lovely, really tries to make the beer accessible to anybody who walks in, because it is a bit of a tourist town. So you have a lot of people who are coming in and might not know anything about Leavenworth, and also might not know much about craft beer itself. So just to have a really great staff that is excited about their beer and excited about beer in general is really important. So
I think in any craft, coffee roasters, winemakers, breweries, the staff can make a huge difference as to what the experience is like. And so that, but wine can be so perceived as so structured, so rule driven, so dare I say pretentious.
Wine does have that perception of there being a little bit more gatekeeping involved to really.
Gatekeeping is a great way of putting it. And that's not always the case. But beers always seem to me to be a more approachable beverage.
I think it comes a lot from kind of the tradition of the public house, right? So if beer being easily made, kind of by anybody, right? You would have your pub, right? In the history of beer, right. You would have your place that you went to that had your favorite bitter, right? So it is a little bit more community driven in a lot of ways. And there's just an amount of just kind of like packability to beer and accessibility to beer. So beer is to be enjoyed wherever there's good times happening. So that's kind of wine seems a little bit more special occasion, right? Like sit down with a nice dinner. And while you can do that with beer, we host beer dinners all the time everywhere, like top chefs pairing a meal with a specific type of beer. It does have a little bit more of that kind of community, sit down with your neighbor and have a pint and have a talk about whatever you want to talk about. So.
Yeah. And I think the fact that you just, in a very short period of time, we've doubled our breweries in the state of Washington is phenomenal. It's also kind of scary given COVID, how all these fledgling businesses of any type are navigating. Mm-hmm. So you said earlier you serve beer. How's that how has this impacted your actual location?
Yeah, it's a great question. We went from during the shutdown, we were able to just do to-go only. We were very fortunate because we had started canning in December of last year. We were kind of doing like a fledgling canning program, just sort of to be a new way to kind of boost business just in a new way. So we were incredibly lucky because we were able to pivot very quickly into just being production. So we went from a place where 90% of our business was over the counter to a place where everything had to be to go only. So that was a quick pivot. We're a small staff, so it's easy for us. And I think that the brewery that I work at is very much kind of a model for how a lot of breweries are doing things during COVID. We were small, like many small breweries. So we just had to make some tough decisions and just move quickly. Now we are really fortunate to have a larger beer garden because we were able to transform our parking lot into a beer garden. So we literally just shut the gate to our parking lot, put up a bunch of tables, and so we're operating that way. So all outside and just pouring pints as quickly as we can and keeping people happy and saying hi and only seeing half of our customers' faces. But, it's a beautiful way to see them. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've heard some really great stories during the last few months about people how they've adapted and changed completely even what they're selling sometimes. And they're, full disclosure, squirrel moment. I've been looking at your audio meter when I'm talking and it's not going up, but that's because it's your audio meter, not my audio meter.
We're good.
I hope we can cut that out. Otherwise it's going to be on the blooper reel for someday. Anyway. Jeez. Okay. So do you both live in Bellingham?
Not currently. I live in Bellingham.
I live part-time in Bellingham, we'll say. When I'm not at the brewery, I'm pretty much up here. So yeah.
Up in Bellingham. Okay. So when you're going out and you want to grab something to eat, let's say you're going to go to lunch, make it casual. Okay. Where's a great place in Bellingham that next time I visit, I should go check out?
Okay. Well, we have a newer place in town called Black Sheep on Holly Street, and it's a taco bar, or it's a bar that
I've been there. I knew that. That place is amazing.
They're fantastic.
They're right next to Camber, actually.
Yes, I knew. Okay, you said that name, and
so
that place is awesome.
That has been one of our go-to places for the last couple of years. Really great tacos and just a fun kind of upbeat vibe at that place. So that's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth.
But
honestly,
we like to go to breweries too. So.
We do. And as far as food and breweries go, probably Bellingham's newest brewery is also one of our favorite places to eat. So Otherlands Brewing in the Sunnyland neighborhood. They make great, wonderful, just really kind of, they describe them as delicate beers, but it's more along the lines of easy drinking beers that pair really well with food. So we're talking a lot of European and Belgian influences in the beer, a lot of lagers, a lot of saisons, some really fun IPAs, and a fantastic food menu. So everything from like a beet salad to Polish pierogies and just delicious, good food.
Okay. And they have a kind of a limited seasonal menu, which is nice because you're not paging through, 500 items. It's pretty easy to sit down and say, okay, they've got, maybe half a dozen things on the menu today. And, oh, that sounds good. That's fresh and in season. And so we've loved just going there every couple of weeks and trying what's new on the menu. Yeah. And everything has been fantastic so far.
Yeah.
That's one of the things when you go to a place and they have, 30 beers on the chalkboard and, 30 items to eat, and it's kind of almost overwhelming. And my default setting then is to go, oh, I recognize that brand. I'll order that and I'll have this safe hamburger here. And I think I'm doing myself a disservice where if I had only 6 items to choose from, and I would probably I'd probably, just because I don't have decision fatigue, I would go, oh, the beet salad, I'm going to give that a try. And then, try to pair it with something just to be different. So I love it when restaurants do more of a seasonal, in season thing versus the overwhelming you with multiple choices of,
It's nice for sharing too. If you're going out with someone, we can each order something and try both and kind of taste through the menu that way. So, yeah.
Right. No, that's awesome. So where else? So in Bellingham, what else is there that you guys like to do when you're out and about and you're not working? You're not writing hiking guides or pouring beers. What is it? What is it in Bellingham that you like to do?
You won't be surprised by this, but we like to go to breweries and we like to hike. Yeah. That's kind of what we do.
Come on now. There's gotta be something else.
What else do we do? We go to happy hour. That's not beer, but that's
okay. That's not bad.
That's something.
Bellingham has in the last few years, a kind of a up and coming cocktail scene. There's a lot of really kind of fun bars. One in Fairhaven that we really love is Swim Club, who is unfortunately only doing to-go cocktails right now. But that one is such a really unique space because it's sort of supposed to be like the French Riviera swim up hotel bar from like the 1950s, early 60s. So think like everybody in this bar reads Hemingway kind of thing, like very just lovely. A lot of like nice kind of mid-color woods, mid-century modern decor, just lovely little escape, especially on a rainy winter day, to just go in and feel like you are not in Bellingham, which is,
that sounds awesome. That sounds like a really cool
very
idea.
fun little bar with a great staff. So,
and then we also like to get out and just kind of explore around the county and in this area, especially now since we've been kind of locked down, staying home more, and not traveling as much. We spent a lot of time just exploring Whatcom County, a little bit of Skagit County, and like last couple of weeks ago, we stayed at Semiyama Resort for a night and spent some time at the beach, doing some easy beach walks and just soaking up the sun.
Yeah, just getting out. It was the first time we'd ever been to the Peace Arch State Park, which was just a strange little world in itself. Like you look out and you look literally across a ditch and there's Canada. There's like literal Canadians hanging out, doing yard work in their yard, walking their dog. And you're like, there's Canada. And I'm not allowed to talk to you.
But I can't go there.
There's no fence.
There's literally no fence.
You can just walk across this little ditch.
Yeah, literally. There's a little.
And I'm not welcome there.
No.
Not welcome.
It was a very strange experience.
That's kind of surreal. Yeah. I go up to Oroville quite a bit, and right there is kind of the same thing. It's just like I can see Canada.
It's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah. From our room at Semiyama, we looked out and it's like, oh, there's the White Rock. There's White Rock, BC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's pretty amazing. So let's see. So Brandon, you've written some articles for our site. Thank you, publicly. Thank you for all your articles, and I encourage everybody to go check them out, self-serving, because it'll be on our site. Where else do you have work published?
Oh yeah, so it's funny, we didn't really give our whole story in the beginning, but I'll give you
let's give it at the end
here.
Let's just screw this interview up and just do it. Tell us your story.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, we did start out with a blog called Beers at the Bottom, and it was just a hobby blog, but it did eventually lead to some other opportunities. Our first published print piece was in Washington Trails magazine, and they're the big state organization, Washington Trails Association, that is an excellent resource for hikers.
Yeah.
And so we started writing for them. We got some bylines, and we were able to then pitch other magazine outlets and things like that. Mm-hmm. So over the years, I've done a lot of freelance writing for sites like Outdoor Project, magazines like Outdoors Northwest and Northwest Travel and Life. And as you mentioned, I write for Explore Washington State now. And I'm also the kind of beer and outdoors guy for Bellingham Tourism. So I contribute a couple of blogs a month over there, which is great because I get to explore my county and kind of meet with business owners and do little interviews and talk about what's new and exciting here in Whatcom County.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I don't quite have the stomach for freelancing, I'll say. I don't love to pitch. So the majority of my writing has been either for a specific business. I did a couple years as a copywriter, have a master's degree in English. Most of our writing that I would consider freelance writing is done in conjunction with you. So a lot of co-authored pieces. But like I said, I'm a blogger now for the brewery and, just kind of a little bit more specifically for organizations rather than being a freelancer.
So what brought you to Bellingham? Are you from Bellingham originally?
No, we both attended college here at Western.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not after that.
So where was home to start with?
So I grew up in the Skagit Valley, which is not far from here.
Okay. Not far.
It's about a half an hour down I-5. So I still have family there, and I'm down there once a week, most weeks.
Okay.
And I grew up in Kirkland, so very close to Kenmore, and then not too far away from Bellingham either. My grandparents actually lived in Bellingham most of my childhood, so it wasn't much of a stretch to come up here for a couple days.
But Kirkland is quite different than
Kirkland
Bellingham.
is quite different from Bellingham. The Kirkland I grew up in, I will say, is closer to the Bellingham now than the Kirkland currently. Kirkland's grown up quite a bit in the 30 years since I was born. So
they're about the same in terms of size, population, but very different.
Very different feel.
Otherwise.
Yeah.
No, but Kirkland's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. Being on the lake and all that is great, but it has changed.
Yes.
Even more in my lifetime than in
sure.
your lifetime. Let's just put it that way. Let's just put it that way. I've got a few years on you. So where can people find you outside of writing for us? Give us some few URLs and we'll put them into the show notes at the bottom. But
So of course our website is beersatthebottom.com. That's kind of our hub where you can find about our books and the other writing stuff that we do. And then we're on social media. Our handle is @BeersATB, which stands for Beers at the Bottom, on
Awesome.
Instagram, Facebook, and sometimes Twitter. We don't use that much anymore, but mostly Instagram these days.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll leave you with the final word. What do you want to say?
Happy trails and ales. This book is a little bit different for us this time around for many reasons. And the main reason is that we did near over 20 events to promote that last book, where we were out on the road, meeting people, going to signings, and getting to talk to people. And that's not the case this time around. So, I guess the last word I'd like to leave anybody with is, if you do pick up our book, please shout us out, get a hold of us, tag it on Instagram. We'd love to see it. We'd love to figure out a way that we can send you a sticker or something with our signature on it. If you wanted to put it in the book, we want to talk to people. We want to hear about your adventures using our words. So it's kind of where I'd like to leave things.
Yeah. And I would add to that, that these trails are really for everyone. You don't have to be a hiker. You don't have to consider yourself a big hiker. We have stuff you can push strollers on. So check it out. There's something in there for everyone. And thank you, Scott, and Explore
thank
Washington
you so much.
State for having us on and sharing the book with your listeners.
Yeah, thank you guys both, and I appreciate you being on here. This is always just really casual and informal, but the goal is to have interesting conversations with people in our state that are doing cool things. Your books are cool. Your articles with us have been great. I encourage everyone to come out and try some beers. Go to Kenmore. Repeat the brewery.
Say Brewing. Yep.
There you go. Go have a beer. Tell them Explore Washington State sent you. There you go. But anyway, thank you folks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Join us next time for another episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast.